o'clock class. I am aware there's a basketball game tonight.
Yes.
You're recording it. You're recording it. The bad guys have already lost, so we both obviously. So it's okay for now. So anyhow, so just continue on, and like I said, you've already seen it. You're memorizing. That's all it is. Memorize, memorize. So sulfur-reducing bacteria. Well, this is where we ended up talking about cholera and so on. I may not have made clear, but this one is not an enterobacter. This one is not in the intestines. It is a facultative anaerobe, and so it's in that general category, but it is not enterobacter or enterobactericide. Okay, so sulfur-reducing bacteria. These guys are obligate anaerobes, and they will use sulfur as an electron acceptor instead of oxygen. Now, obviously, we use oxygen for our electron acceptor, our final electron acceptor. But almost by definition, an anaerobe cannot do that. If they were using oxygen, it would not be an anaerobe. So anyhow, so in this case, sulfur. So since you have sulfur accepting the electrons, you get H2S, you're reducing it. And the whole process can release, as you can see, tons of sulfur into the atmosphere. The Republican Party, which has always fought environmental, cleaning and everything, has used that as one of the excuses to not have environmental protection, because they say that just natural organisms release lots of contaminants into the atmosphere. Well, true enough. That's one of them. True enough, but clearly the Earth is able to handle this kind of stuff. Can't handle the stuff that we put out. So, but you will hear that as an excuse sometimes why environmental protection is not a necessity, because natural organisms do it. Yeah, a little bit. Not like we do. So again, obligate anaerobes, they are found in anaerobic mud and also in the intestinal tract, which means we eat them. So gram-negative cocci. Rickettsia.
I say that is?
Rickettsia. So obligate anaerobe again, transmitted, and this is not unusual, transmitted by ticks, fleas, and lice. This is something you can get from your pets. Your pets would be out running around, running through the bushes and so on, and you come back with ticks or fleas. Can only reproduce inside a host cell. Now this is actually the definition of parasite, thank you. The definition of a parasite. Because parasites can only survive inside a host cell. And causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever. It's curable, treatable. What I did want to say though, you see the word rickettsia, you very well might get mixed up with rickets.
Yes.
Rickets is much, much better known, but it's nothing, I know the words are the same, but it's nothing to do with it. Rickets is a nutritional disease. Some of you are aware that when children do not get proper nutrition, that their bones are often, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Their bones are often soft because they're putting on weight, they're growing and everything. So as their bones are soft, if they start to bend, I can't really do it, I'm just bending my knees. But for them, the bones bend. And of course, once that happens, they're going to go through life like that. You cannot unbend the bones.
I heard that it's not just food, it's like milk.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
vitamin D, exactly. Because the vitamin D helps to capture calcium, and you need calcium for the bones. That's exactly what it is. But anyhow, like I say, rickets has nothing to do with rickettsia. It looks like it should, but it does not. It's just a coincidence. What else do I have? Chlamydius, again, gram-negative, coccus. Transmitted by the air or personal contact. Personal contact can be sexual contact or, in the proper conditions, just touching somebody. Can't do it.
Like how?
Oh, if you shake hands and you kind of rub your eye or something. But look at this thing. It can cause trachoma, chlamydius now. It can cause trachoma, a common cause of blindness in the third world. Where I was in Ghana, in West Africa, we got a lot of that. I didn't know what it was at the time. I learned later, but we had a lot of that.
Chlamydia can cause trachoma.
Pardon me?
Chlamydia
Yes.
can cause trachoma.
Yes, it's very, very common, particularly people living near the rivers that were drying up. Also, look at this thing here, urethritis, most common sexually transmitted disease, which is amazing since most of you have never heard of it. But you know, think back, most of you have had A and P, so remember that going from the bladder, going from the kidneys to the bladder, you've got the ureters, two ureters, and then from the bladder out is the urethra. So that is what's getting inflamed. It's an inflammation. Again, treatable. It is gram-negative, so it takes a little more effort, but it can be treated. But yeah, usually if you were to think of a sexually transmitted disease, you would think of syphilis or gonorrhea or herpes, something like that. That's more common. But chlamydius. Mycoplasms. Mycoplasms, this is an exception to the rule. And the rule, of course, is that bacteria have cell walls. These guys don't.
What do they have?
Well, they have the same thing all cells have. But my question is not going to be that. My question will be, if there's no cell wall, how do you know it's a bacteria?
No.
No nucleus.
Oh, I get one.
You do. I'm going to take it away in a minute, but you get a point. So yeah, no nucleus. That's exactly how you know. If there's no nucleus, it's a bacteria. But it is awfully unusual not to have a cell wall. In fact, there's only one other bacteria that's true. You know, there's always exceptions, as you know. So in this case, there are two exceptions, that they don't have cell walls. So we're going to stick to what we've always said. Bacteria have cell walls. Just because there's an exception, we'll live with this. So they don't have cell walls, but I have a warning here, don't get mixed up with mycobacteria. I mean, that would be an easy thing to mix up. But that's different. Mycobacteria have mycolic acid. Do you remember what diseases they cause?
Tuberculosis and leprosy.
Tuberculosis and leprosy, yeah. And what's the staining test we use? Acid fast. Okay, well, that won't be on your midterm. Everybody got it, so, no, you guys did good. Yeah, so acid fast test. We didn't do it in this class, unfortunately, but the acid fast test. That's mycobacteria. It's not mycoplasma.
What was the vaccine cells? Cell
What?
wall thing? I didn't get it.
Mycoplasms do not have cell walls. That's
Well,
all.
the second one, not the because mycobacterial
Oh,
does
possibly
have
acid.
cell walls. Oh, okay, never mind. I was thinking of something else.
I had to wake her up. Okay, so they stain gram-negative because no cell walls. It's not really gram-negative. They stain gram-negative for the same reason our cells stain gram-negative. There's no peptidoglycan. No peptidoglycan because no cell wall. There's no cell wall, well, there's nothing to keep the purple color in. So if I do ask you about that for mycoplasm, say it's gram-negative. But like I say, technically, it really does not apply.
Okay.
But go with gram-negative. Okay, oh yeah. Now the mycoplasms do cause opportunistic diseases. We talked about that the other day. Opportunism. In this case, an atypical pneumonia. So again, most of us would never get that. We might get pneumonia, but not this one. So once again, you need to be chronically ill, and then you're weakened, and then you can get that. Now, streptococcus, you've seen this before actually. all streptococcus can hemolyze red blood cells, but to varying degrees. Streptococcus pyogenes is what we've seen before. Streptococcus pyogenes simply eats red blood cells. But the other streptococcus, to a lesser degree,
What does it do?
it eats
Eats, yeah.
what you're doing. It eats red blood cells. But again, the others do it too, but to a lesser degree, that's all. And it won't be a surprise, streptococcus can cause strep throat. What a surprise that is. Scarlet fever and rheumatic fever. All of these are not fun. Really, you'll recover and all the rest of it, but it's not fun. However, rheumatic fever has one extra thing involved with it. It can cause death, this is rheumatic fever, can cause deafness in young children. So if a young child gets hit with this, loses hearing forever. So clearly extremely dangerous. Now why young children and not older people, I'm not really sure.
What's scarlet?
Scarlet fever is a different version, it's just a fever and the skin actually turns red. Spore forming gram-positive rods. So just a whole variety of stuff, different types of everything. Bacillus, of course, we know they form spores, we've seen it. Definitely gram-positive rods. Normally non-pathogenic, there's that word again. The exception here, Bacillus anthracis, which just might cause anthrax. Anthrax is normally not something that bothers humans, but it can. Blood disease in cattle, it can pass to humans. Some of you might be aware, this is really the only case of biological terrorism we've ever had in this country. This is now, and I might be off a little, but 10 or 12 years ago. Somebody was mailing anthrax powder to various people on the East Coast. I never did learn why. Never did find out. But this guy was clearly very, very skilled because skilled in microbiology, biochemistry, because he was able to take the anthrax bacteria and he dried them out and he ground them into a very, very fine powder. Very fine powder. And the reason for that is because he wanted that when the envelope would open, it would just kind of go into the air as a powder and infect the people that way. It was ground so finely that several postal workers died from it because the powder was able to go through the pores in the envelope. So the guys who were actually delivering the mail actually got infected and a couple died. So he actually did end up killing several people. I never did find out why. The FBI claims that they caught the guy who promptly committed suicide. There's always been some question, was he really the one? So I don't know. But, well, he was or he was not. I never did hear the reason. Why was he doing this? So, that's the only real case we've ever had of biological terror. Clostridium. These guys are bad ones. These are very bad. Obligate anaerobes. Obligate anaerobes. And they're in the soil, as you can see, in the water. Look what they cause. Tetanus, botulism, gangrene. Tetanus is a disease where basically the relaxation pathway for your muscles is blocked. So your muscles contract and you cannot relax. So your muscles stay like this. A lot of times they contract more. And sometimes the contractions are so strong that your bones break. You actually can break bones doing this. Basically, it's a neurotoxin. And it blocks the nerve pathway that would cause your muscles normally to relax. Botulism, of course, you're familiar with, food poisoning. Gangrene, you may or may not know. Essentially, the oxygen supply is cut off to your skin and to your tissues. and particularly in your arms and legs. So amputations are not uncommon in case of gangrene, because as the tissues lose oxygen, the gangrene spreads. It keeps going up, 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 up. And eventually, if you allow it to, it'll get up into your chest and into your body. Well, at that point, it's going to kill you. So they have to amputate to prevent that from happening. So it's a really nasty thing.
Going on.
Non-spore forming, well, lactobacillus. Now, you remember how surprised I was at the name of that, lactobacillus. The lacto means milk. I was thinking, bacteria making milk? That doesn't sound right. So, anyhow, no, that's not what they do. First off, you can see that they don't use oxygen, they're obligate anaerobes, but they're aerotolerant, so they can tolerate oxygen. They don't use the oxygen, but they tolerate it, just like us with nitrogen. But the lacto is not from milk, it's from lactic acid. So these guys will produce lactic acid. And in this case, it's actually important because the acidity will inhibit other bacteria. Now, where I'm going with that is, particularly in the vagina. Now, without meaning to be crude in any way, but the vagina is a perfect breeding ground for bacteria. It's warm, it's moist, it's dark. Bacteria like that. So they would normally be a lot of bacterial infections. Well, what prevents that is the lactobacillus. It creates an acidity in the vagina that the other bacteria don't like, and therefore, no bacterial infections. So as you can see, it's actually quite important. They also find it in the intestines and the mouth, but it's not quite as significant, frankly. Used to make, now it's also used commercially, to make sauerkraut, pickles, yogurt, and buttermilk. All of these are sour to some extent. I always was kind of fascinated, what the heck is buttermilk? Because why would you put butter into milk? So I actually tasted it one day, I just drank it, and it was god-awful. It was really terrible. So if you're really mad at somebody, give them some buttermilk. It really tastes bad. And after I did that, my friend was very calmly watching me do that, watching me spit it out all over the place. And then she informed me that you're really not supposed to drink it for baking. And she should have told me that beforehand. But anyhow, yeah, it's really foul tasting. So if you've never tasted it, you should try it. And if you're mad at somebody, give it to them.
We just did all the time.
Otherwise, use it for baking.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? So still gram-positive here, mycobacteria. So guys, so the mycobacteria are gram-positive. Again, they got the mycolic acid. And again, the acid fast, we just talked about it. Tuberculosis and leprosy. I think I've spoken to you about that before, but I'll just remind you that leprosy is a disease that eats the soft tissues. So I'm pretty sure I told you before sometime that where I was in Ghana.
Dangerous looking on some.
Yeah, well, their lips, no lips, and this part of the nose was gone, the ears were gone, you know. So they really did not look like death's heads, to be very honest. Yeah, the fingers were gone.